What's going on, guys? Mr. Acolyte here, and welcome to my guide on how to play Cagliostro. I've been playing this game non-stop since it came out, and after getting Masters in the first week and grinding in Master Rank ever since, I feel like I have learned a lot about how to play this character, and I'm ready to share that information with you guys. In this guide, we're going to go ahead and go section by section and cover all of the important aspects of Cagliostro's kit, from her neutral to her mix-ups to her general pressure to her combos, all that good stuff. So by the time we're done, you should have a great understanding of how this character is supposed to be played. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right on into it. So the first section we're going to cover is Cag's general neutral. Neutral is pretty much one of the most important factors of any fighting game due to the fact that it's what decides the pace of the match. But speaking of Cag specifically, it's one of her strongest aspects of her entire kit. Most of Cag's moves are very, very good at neutral. We're going to go over them one by one, and something I want you to keep in mind as you listen is the fact that all of Cag's tools stack with each other. And what I mean by stack is, usually if you combine any two of her tools together, it augments both of them to become a much, much bigger threat to the opponent. I'll point those out as we go, but just keep that in mind as we go over the explanations of each tool. So the first tool we're going to go over for her neutral is pretty much the most important one, is her rock. Her rock is her signature move, and it comes up in every aspect of this guide. So to start off with, it is a great projectile. It's just a very good long-range poke. It moves at a very good speed and will clash with other projectiles. One of its best aspects is how much pushback it has on block. This means it is a projectile that most opponents are not going to want to block. It's going to cause them to evade, roll, or jump. And these are all things that you actually want them to do. This is actually a good thing, and the rock causes all of this. Now, of course, as you may or may not know, the rock itself can be leveled up. Either by tapping the button or holding it down, you can level the rock up from level 1 all the way to level 5. And for each level, the rock gets another hit. So at level 2, the rock will hit twice, and at level 3, it'll hit 3 times, and so on and so forth. It's also important to note that the rock at level 1 does not do any chip damage. So while the pushback is great, keep in mind that you are not actually causing any chip. However, once you hit level 2, it does do a decent amount of chip, and the chip goes up for every extra level. Rock level ups are useful for a ton of different situations. Obviously, they're very, very good for fireball wars. If you have a level 2 rock or above, you can cleanly go through the opponent's fireball and just eat through it. And a level 3 rock will actually cancel out EX fireballs. Level 4 and 5 will eat through EX fireballs. And if you do take the trouble to go all the way to level 5, on top of having 5 hits and eating through most projectiles in the game, it also moves very slow, meaning you can chase behind it. Level 5 rock is definitely worth a charge if you can get it. And keep in mind, you don't have to actually throw rocks at fireballs. You can simply cancel them out with a rock charge. So if you're looking for an opportunity to get a rock charge in, waiting till an opponent throws a fireball is a great way to get charges in for free. Next up is Calculated, also known as the spikes. The spikes are fantastic at neutral because they basically track the opponent as long as you are within the correct range. So the light version will track the opponent if they are close to you and it pushes them away. This is fantastic for creating more space. Even though it is negative, it's roughly -5. Usually the opponent is going to be so far away that it's going to be hard for them to actually challenge you in any way after they block this. The medium version hits almost full screen, not quite full screen, but almost, and this is usually the range you'll be playing at anyway, so you can basically say that from full screen, you can still threaten your opponent with a semi-instant poke that comes out of the ground. The H version has the same range as the M version, except that it sends the opponent away just like the L. So the H is also great for creating space, and it comes out at a whopping 20 frames just like the L version, so the H is definitely worth spending if you have a read on the opponent. One of the strongest aspects of the spike is, as I mentioned before, it comes out of the ground, which means that it actually does beat rolls. So this means anytime an opponent tries to roll against Cag, they are risking getting hit by a spike. So if you pair this with what we were saying about the rock, remember how I told you that all of her kit stacks together? So usually when you throw projectiles at people, that's going to cause them to start rolling. And then that's where the spike comes in. So anytime anyone interacts with the rock, you are basically setting them up for the spike. Another great use for rock charge is that it will actually cancel out fireballs when you do your spike. The animation of Cag putting the rock in front of her during the spike actually does negate fireballs. So once you have a rock charged, it is even harder for the opponent to throw fireballs at you. Next up, let's talk about the teleport. Cag's teleport is a fantastic mobility option and gives you plenty of ways to traverse the screen and even change your jump momentum. So right off the bat, I just want to say, one thing that you want to avoid with Cag, especially if you're starting out or even if you're an intermediate player with her, avoid doing this. This is a strong urge and a big bad habit that a lot of newer Cag players have. I can tell you from experience that once you hit any sort of a higher rank, this is all people are waiting on. They are literally waiting and hoping that you will do this. Most people will start positioning themselves where you would land just so they can get their 2H combos. I would say that 10% of your teleports should be the medium version to come down on the opponent, and 90% of them should be the light or the EX. The light is just so much better overall because you create space every time you do it, and it is great at jump faking. Jump faking is something we'll go into in much deeper detail later, but for now, jump faking is just the idea of making it look like you're going to come down with a jump, but then breaking up your air momentum at the last second. The light is great for this. And honestly, the medium is even better. If you jump fake the medium, it takes you to an area that is almost completely safe. As we mentioned before, and we'll continue to mention throughout the guide, Cag's attacks stack very well, and this is another great situation. Anytime you fake her teleport, you can still throw the rock. You're still allowed to do air actions on the way down, so if you ever jump in and fake it with a medium, you can still snipe them with a rock. It is a really great utility. Just remember to be smart with it. You don't want to be predictable. Don't give your opponent free damage. That's one of the last things you ever want to do in any fighting game, is make the match easier for the opponent. Now, of course, other than the light and the medium, we mentioned it a little bit, the EX. Her EX teleport is one of her best moves by far. It is pretty much ridiculous as a tool. It is the only teleport with a physical hitbox. It actually does attack the opponent, and it is plus on block. Gives a combo on hit, and is just an all-around fantastic mix-up tool. We'll talk about the many ways to use her EX teleport a little bit later on, but just keep in mind that it is a great pressure tool. It is a great Oki tool. And if you feel like you really have a read and you do want to land on somebody after a teleport, use the EX. Even from over here, even from full screen, the EX is still a great option because it recovers way faster than the medium. And now it's time to talk about the biggest aspect of Cag's entire kit, and that is, of course, the traps. The traps are by far her most important aspect when it comes to any part of her game plan. So let's go ahead and break down all the different ways to use her traps and why they're so good. So honestly, it's kind of hard to summarize why her traps are so good in one go. If I had to simplify it, I would say the best thing about the traps is that they are both offensive and defensive at the same time. One of the best examples of this, I believe, is when it comes to dash attack. Now, it's no secret that most of this game's neutral revolves around dash attack. Dash attack is a huge part of this game. Just trying to stop your opponent from dash attacking you is a massive part of this game and can be incredibly difficult. However, for Cag, simply by having a trap down can greatly negate the risk of people even doing one of the most basic strategies in the entire game. This is one of many examples of how just having a trap down is limiting your opponent and putting pressure on them at the same time. In case you didn't know, the traps can be destroyed by the opponent's attacks. However, usually in most situations, the attacks that actually destroy the traps are not the most ideal attacks for the opponent. As you can see with Jita here, I have to do my crouch light. That's not exactly a button that you want to press with Jita at neutral, and that's an example of how strong the traps are even if you don't do anything. This is doubly true for the air trap. Once the air trap is out, this will substantially limit the opponent's options and will basically force them to want to destroy the traps because it's going to prevent them from jumping or even potentially landing on you with a button after they've already jumped. So now that we have that brief overview of what the traps are and why they're so good, let's go ahead and talk about all the different positions of the traps. So when it comes to the traps, you have 4 main positions, 2 on the ground and 2 in the air. For the grounded version, you have the light trap, which puts one at Cag's feet. This one is primarily used for defense in most aspects. This is the one you will use most likely if you're trying to stop the opponent from rushing in on you, or if you're trying to stop those dash attacks that we were talking about before. The medium one will send it away from Cag and closer to the opponent. This one is mostly used for more direct offense. This is one that you do if you want to claim some space from your opponent. Like, let's say that you feel like you're losing the neutral war and you want to claim some space. Usually the medium is the one that you will go to for this. When the trap is closer to the opponent, most opponents that know the matchup are going to feel compelled to destroy it, and them destroying it leaves you open to move forward and to attack. So don't be discouraged if your opponent is destroying your traps. That's part of the plan. If they're destroying the traps, that means they're not attacking you. And then of course the heavy version puts down both at the same time. You get the close and the long range both simultaneously, which is very, very nice. However, putting down 2 at once is not the only strength. The EX pops almost instantly. As you can see right there, I tried to run up and 2L it, but I got hit. If you find an opponent who is constantly trying to hit your traps, try putting the EX out there because it'll make them think twice about trying to destroy it without getting hit. Now, when it comes to the air version, the light version goes a pretty considerable distance from you. The light version goes about as far as the medium grounded version. The fact that you send it out so far means that you're almost always going to interrupt the opponent's jump arc, no matter where you put it. So once you create one at this distance, now Jita literally cannot jump on me. It creates a situation where they literally have to destroy the trap because their movement is being limited. And when it comes to the medium version, it's even better because it goes behind them in most instances. The medium is almost full screen, and even if you are full screen, it's going to stop them from jumping. The medium is very, very strong because in most instances it's going to go behind them. Anytime you have a trap behind the opponent, that's an incredibly good situation. And the air medium gives you that for free. And much like the grounded one, the EX air version does both at the same time, and they last for quite a while, so this is very, very good for restricting your opponent's movements. However, an important thing to note, your cooldowns on an EX trap is very, very long. You can see here, if I put the EX trap down, it will not start coming back until the traps have disappeared. So anytime you use the EX traps, you have to keep that in mind. If the opponent does not engage with it or you do not pop them, it's going to be a while. As you can see, I'm just now getting my charge, and now I got it back. So it's not too bad for what the EX trap offers. It's absolutely worth it because EX trap is very, very, very strong. But just keep that in mind that it could be a while before you're allowed to do a trap again if you do choose to do the EX. So now that we got a good idea about what the traps do and how to use them, let's go ahead and talk about how the traps interact with our other special moves. So when it comes to the rock is very, very good for helping you get traps out in the first place. Anytime the opponent interacts with a rock, whether that be a spot dodge or if they block it and get pushed back, remember how we talked about that pushback earlier? That is a great opportunity to get a trap out. And of course, once a trap is already down, it becomes an even stronger poke because your opponent is going to be focused on trying to destroy the trap or get around it. And now that you're poking them from afar with your trap up, it's just making their job that much harder. This is doubly true for the air trap. Once you have the air trap out, it's going to be hard for them to jump at all, so they're going to be coming at you directly, and that literally sets them up for the rock. When it comes to traps already being down, there's pretty much nothing better than the spikes. If you have a trap down already, you can almost always utilize your spikes to force the opponent to interact with the trap. If you have a trap out and they want to try to destroy it, this is going to be their biggest threat, because if they actually get hit by this, it's going to lead to a pretty substantial combo situation. You can get a lot of damage out of someone getting hit into a spike. Again, this is another fantastic aspect of the air traps, because usually if you threaten the opponent with a medium spike from mid-screen, it does pretty negligible damage. It might not be enough to discourage the opponent from wanting to stop doing what they're doing. However, if you have a trap out, this becomes an entirely different situation, because you can potentially spike them into traps and get full-on combo situations going. When it comes to the EX teleport, earlier I mentioned one of the best situations is having a trap behind the opponent. And once again, because your EX teleport is plus, you create a strong situation where your opponent has to deal with the trap, and you can get all sorts of crazy mix-up and pressure situations going on. There are just so many different things that you can do with traps that the best thing you can do is analyze what is your opponent doing to you, what do they like to do, and use the right trap for the situation, because technically she has one for every situation in the game pretty much. If you have an opponent that just won't stop jumping on you and it's making you afraid to do any of your other moves, put an air trap out. Got an opponent who's getting all their offense from dash attacks? Stay close to a ground trap. Got an opponent who doesn't like to engage? Threaten them with a far screen trap. With Cag's kit, the more reactively you play, that is to say reacting to what your opponent is actually doing and not autopiloting, the harder it's going to be for your opponent to get their game plan going. Now let's go ahead and talk about Cag's neutral buttons. She does have a lot of good buttons with a lot of good uses. Let's go ahead and break them down one by one. Starting with her crouch medium. When it comes to her long range pokes, this is not only her fastest poke, but also her fastest recovering poke. So you're fighting an opponent who you're not sure if they're going to jump or not, you don't have a trap up, you're not sure, you just want to create some space, crouch medium is a good go-to. It's got a lot of pushback. This is just an all-around good button if you need a fast, reliable poke that's not too risky. Next up is stand medium. This is her longest reaching poke. It has a lot of pushback, pushes back very far, comes out a little slower at 10 frames. It's a little slow, but it makes up for the slowness with distance and active frames. This move is just very, very good if you're trying to catch an opponent who's running in on you. This move is particularly good at beating dash attacks. Some of her other pokes can be kind of tough to beat dash attacks, as you can see right there. Since her crouch medium doesn't last very long, it's not a very good option for that. But on the other hand, her stand medium, it lasts kind of like deceptively long. So if you're having trouble with people trying to hit you with dash attacks, stand medium is a great option. Also, if you just want to push people away, creating space with Cag is very, very important, and stand medium is great for that. Next up is her sweep. This is a very fast, very reliable low. Just keep in mind though, this has a lot of recovery and it's very negative on block. If you ever do the sweep and it gets blocked, you have to cancel it into something. The best options to cancel it, we'll cover that here in just a second when we move on to pressure sequences, but keep that in mind. Either way though, her sweep is very, very good, and it's just a great poke in general because it has to be blocked low. So this does keep the opponent honest, and a lot of times people are going to be trying to walk backwards. So if you have a read on somebody walking backwards, sweep is great for catching them off guard. Next up is the button you probably already know about. It is Cag's God button, and that is her stand heavy. Boy, oh boy, what can you say about stand heavy? It does your taxes. Stand heavy is very, very fast. As you see, it comes out in 9 frames. It's high priority, so it'll beat mediums and lights. This game does have a priority system. It catches the startup of jumps because it's so fast. It's very common that if someone tries to start a jump near you, the H will just knock them out of it completely. It's fairly safe because it pushes them back quite a bit. And as you can see, it's only -5, which is not that bad for how much pushback it has. That's honestly kind of crazy. And best of all, it's 3 hits even on block. So that means that it is completely and utterly hit confirmable. The problem with a lot of Cag's other pokes is that they are very hard to hit confirm. If you hit a stand medium, for example, stand medium only combos into the lariat from counter hit or up close. Normally, you have to do stand medium into EX lariat if you want it to combo. Same thing for crouching medium. So hit confirming these can be very tough, and they flat out do not confirm into the spike at all unless it's a counter hit. So it can be very hard to hit confirm with CAG at neutral, except for the fact that 5H exists. 5H, you have plenty of time to see that it hits and just go for a combo. You can see that it hits, boom, hit him with the spike. See that it hits, go into the Tatsu. This button does literally everything. It's fantastic. Its only weakness is it has a fair bit of recovery. So be careful about just throwing it out unless you have a trap above your head and you know you're safe, because it is pretty susceptible to jumps. But if you're in a good situation, if you're all set up, it is a fantastic poke, and it's kind of a nightmare for the opponent to deal with. Next up is her Crouch Heavy. This is a fantastic anti-air. Basically, people cannot jump on CAG at all. The only way you can jump on CAG is if you have some sort of jump altering attack, but any normal jump is going to straight up lose to this. Not only that, people can't jump over you either. It hits people clearly behind you. So it's like a huge part of this game is anti-airing and waiting for people to jump at neutral. CAG is exceptionally good at this because of reasons we've already talked about. Simply having a trap down and waiting to anti-air will win you dozens of matches, trust me. And closing out the neutral buttons is, of course, you guessed it, the Dash Light. Dash Light is how you go from neutral to pressure. It's everybody's best button from a range. CAG's is no different. Hers comes out at 8 frames. It is +2. Now, the thing about CAG's dash attack, it's a little stubby. As you can see, it doesn't hit from very far away, but if you're kind of close, it'll hit. She doesn't really get much out of it in terms of after the opponent has blocked. Once the opponent has blocked it, you get your stand light right there, and your stand light is plus from a range. The problem is not a lot combos off of stand light unless you're very close. So if a lot of characters get better situations from their dash attacks connecting, for CAG, that's about the best you can get unless you go into a raging strike from there. So her return on investment for dash attack is not as good as other characters, but it's not really the end of the world. You can still work with it. It's just something to make note of. So now that we have a very good understanding of how to play neutral with CAG, let's go ahead and move on to the next section, which will be actually applying pressure to your opponent. So let's start by going over her buttons that you'll be using in pressure sequences. First up will be her 2L. So her 2L is a very good, very fast, very reliable low poke. It is negative on block, however, it does chain into itself, so you can still threaten frame traps. 2L is also your best button for setting up throw shimmies. Anytime your opponent blocks a 2L, they're usually going to be close enough for you to still throw them. Next up is 5L. Her close 5L, remember this game has close and far buttons, her close 5L is extremely plus. It's +4 on block, and it comes out at a whopping fast 5 frames. So this is a great button anytime you're up close. Again, you can chain into this from your crouch light, so you can go from low to plus frames just like that. This button is also very good for setting up shimmies. Anytime somebody blocks this, you can simply step forward and throw them, or you can step back and go for one of your other buttons. This is what we call a shimmy. Next up is 2M. We went over this button already, but this button is very good in pressure situations because, again, it is your fastest long-range poke. So if you have plus frames, such as you just made them block your 5L, that's a good time to use your crouch medium. If you're trying to win a war with the opponent, if you feel like they're going to swing, that's a good time to use your crouch medium. Not only that, it has major pushback. 5H, of course, just like the other button, it is very good from up close. You'll most likely be using this after a shimmy or just after you've gotten yourself some plus frames and you feel like the opponent is not going to try and challenge you. Same thing with the sweep, same as the ones that we just mentioned before. Now, having good buttons on the opponent's block is great and all, but what do you do once you actually get them to block? That's where the cancels come in. So whenever you force your opponent to block something, specifically your mediums, whether it be your 2M, your 5H, or your sweep, this is when you're going to want to go into one of your cancels. So let's go ahead and break down the different cancel options you have and which ones you should be using for which situations. For this example, we'll use your 5H since it is the button that has the most hits, and most likely it's the button you'll be using the most during your pressure sequences. So the first option obviously is the trap. Now keep in mind that anytime you do this, it is technically a risk. If you have an opponent who is not too keen on blocking, you cannot put a trap down without getting counter hit. However, you can minimize that risk by playing around with when you do it. For example, doing it from a light. Since you're plus, your opponent knows you're plus after this, you could sneak it in there. And then again, 5H is great for this because it hits 3 times. So you can do 1 hit, trap. You don't want to get too predictable, do all 3 hits and then trap, because your opponent is going to start swinging on you and counter hitting you. Once you believe the opponent will block, however, and we'll talk about ways, if they are swinging at you, we'll talk about ways of stopping that. But let's assume the opponent is going to block. Anytime you get this situation, this is extremely good because you're resetting your pressure. If you do that right there and they actually block the trap, you are completely free to restart your pressure with any sort of sequence. You can run up, go for a throw shimmy, you can straight up do a dash attack. There's so many things you can do once they've blocked a trap from this range, and your buttons are just great for forcing them to do that. Next up is the spike cancel. So canceling into the spike is a fantastic option. Number one, and most obviously, if an opponent is trying to stop you from setting traps down, the spike is just going to outright counter hit them and force them to work to get back in on you once again. And again, of course, if you have a trap already up, this is a great situation where, boom, you can get even more damage. But not only that, as we mentioned before, this beats the roll. So a lot of opponents like to try to roll past buttons because that's very good on a lot of other characters. But on CAG, that literally doesn't work. So this makes it to where the opponent has to either block or evade. Now, if they do evade, you are fairly negative. You are -6, so you will completely lose your turn here, and in some instances, you can even get punished. So try not to be too predictable with the spike. The idea is to keep the opponent guessing. Next up is one of my personal favorites, and that is the teleport cancel. Anytime you get your opponent to block a button, you can simply go into the teleport. If the opponent does try to swing, which most likely they will because they don't want you setting up that trap, this is a great way to potentially punish them. It's fantastic for breaking up your strings, especially if you think the opponent's going to swing, and just for keeping your opponent guessing. And the last cancel is simply the rock cancel. If you don't know if the opponent is going to try to evade or not and you're worried about it, you can throw the rock because rock throw is actually neutral. This is a great option. They can roll past this and try to punish you, but that is a huge risk to them because they honestly don't know if you're going to spike or not. So rock is a great option for breaking things up. And the most important aspect of cancels that I want to fully stress is that you don't have to do it. When your opponent blocks one of these moves, especially your H, you don't actually have to do anything. The number one thing your opponent is waiting for is to see which option you're going to cancel into. If you don't cancel into anything, in most instances, you can steal a turn. If you do your 5H and you don't actually cancel and they try to evade, that's a free punish. When it comes to auto combo enders, all of the cancels we talked about before still apply. Still use your teleport to create space and your spike to push them back, all of that good stuff. Auto combo is not a situation where you're going to want to put a trap down though. Auto combo, your opponent is literally just waiting for their turn at this moment. So this is not a situation where you want to put a trap down. Only if you have some sort of space you want to put trap down. Never put it down directly in front of them because they will hit you 100%. Also, remember that you can work in your overhead forward H and the low forward M. keep in mind that the forward M is low and gapless. They can't DP that, so those are good options. But besides that, another ender we didn't talk about before is the neutral U ender, just the rock charge. Rock charge is a very good ender for auto combo because it has a lot of pushback. It has enough pushback to where it can be hard for the opponent to hit you afterwards or even try to challenge you. But not just that, you can threaten actually throwing the rock. So this is a fantastic option if you're already locked into auto combo, just going for the rock charge. And better yet, if you're at level 2 or above, this situation is actually plus. You can see right there, I'm +7. So 100% I get to keep my turn. One of the best reasons to keep a rock charged is so that if you go into auto combo, you can keep your turn. Even right there, you can see I'm +1 after doing my auto combo and going directly into the rock toss. So keep that in mind when you're in the middle of an auto combo. And now it's time to talk about Cag's ultimate skills. Ultimate skills are such a huge part of this game that I figured they should have their own section. Each ultimate skill has its own unique property and own situation that it's extremely good in, so let's go ahead and break them all down one by one. Starting first with possibly her best ultimate skill, and that is the ultimate trap. So the ultimate trap, what makes it different from the other traps is, for one, the opponent cannot destroy it. You can do it on the ground or you can do it in the air. Because of the fact that when you do the ultimate trap in the air, it always places it on the ground in front of you. If you ever jump at your opponent and they try to anti-air you, ultimate trap will win every single time, and it gives you a combo for it. Neutral ultimate skills are fantastic because they have a refund system. Ultimate skills normally cost 50% meter. However, if you connect them at neutral, you get half the meter back. That means you can go into your Raging Strike basically for free. Throwing this out from time to time is going to make your opponent always second guess whether or not they should be trying to anti-air you. But that's not all. Ultimate trap, if you ever run up to the opponent, it will always throw shimmy them. And then you get a huge combo for it. Absolutely devastating. If you have an opponent that is teching throw a lot, this will literally delete their health bar. Next up is the ultimate Tatsu. Admittedly, this one is not quite as good as the ultimate trap. Ultimate trap has a ton of uses. The ultimate Tatsu is basically just for the corner carry. It has fantastic corner carry. If you hit your opponent anywhere near the corner, it's very likely they're gonna bounce. And if they're not near the corner, it's gonna put them pretty close to it. Next up is the ultimate spear. This is a fantastic move because it literally tracks anywhere on screen. And it is one of the best anti-projectile moves in the entire game. If you ever scope out a projectile, Cag becomes invincible once the animation goes through, so you can snipe projectiles for free. And again, look at my meter. You get your meter back if you're successful. This is a great option for controlling the screen at neutral. And for some reason, I don't know why, this is extremely cheap. The move is air unblockable. They cannot block it. I actually can't believe it. I don't know if that'll get patched eventually, but man, is that amazing. Next up is the ultimate teleport. This one is just pretty straightforward. This is your DP. This is your get off of me option. It's invincible frame 1, so if you need to get the opponent off of you, this is your go-to move. Like all the others, it is a hard knockdown, so you can do some setups there if you like. You always come down from out of the air. This makes it slightly hard to punish. It's not impossible to punish, but if you fight someone who's not used to the Cagliostro matchup, they might not get the punish because, like a normal DP, you don't fall near the opponent. But keep in mind, it is still very punishable on block, so don't go too crazy with it. But either way, this is your only true get off of me with Cag other than just doing raw super. And then last but certainly not least, you have the air version of the EX teleport. We call it the throne drop. This move is pretty ridiculous. It has its own unique property from the grounded version. This version actually is plus on block. It's plus and it's invul on the way down. The opponent literally cannot 2H you out of it. They can't even DP you out of it. However, the return on investment is not that great. While you do get your meter refund, it is a straight knockdown. However, you do get a safe jump out of this. If the opponent tries to wake up with anything, all you have to do is just hold up, and it is 100% a safe jump. You know it's a safe jump because whether they DP or whether they wake up with a button, I will still counter hit them, or I will block the DP. Now that we've covered all the ins and outs of how to actually play Cag, let's go ahead and talk about her combo structure. When it comes to combos overall, Cag is not an extremely complicated character. Most of her routes are pretty simple and straightforward. The complexity really comes from what you want out of her combos. Let's go ahead and talk about that. And for the last section, let's go ahead and talk about defense. Now, this is an important topic for Cag because she does not have a meterless reversal, which means you're going to have to make some good decisions whenever it's time for you to play defense. Let's go ahead and cover a few good ways of dealing with pressure with Cag. So tip number one is a simple one, and it applies to most characters, and that is simply to don't panic. Most offense in this game is just going to be a series of mids. Most openings come from the opponent trying to grab you, but anytime they try to grab you, that technically means they're taking a risk. So always keep this in mind when your opponent is pressuring you and see if you can find a gap in their offense. Tip number two, always pay attention to your resources. You have your Brave gauge and you have your meter. Both of these things will always help you get the opponent off. Anytime you're taking offense, you should always be aware how many Brave points do you have and how much meter do you have. If you have enough Brave points to spend, don't be afraid to use your guard cancel. Guard cancel is insanely strong in this game. If you get the counter hit with it, it is actually a hard knockdown, so you can literally go from being oppressed to being the one oppressing them. Even if you don't get the counter hit, in most instances, just hitting your guard cancel at all will reset you both back to neutral. Just be sure you don't get too predictable with it though, or you can be punished pretty hard. And lastly, if you find yourself getting throw shimmied a lot, try teching with light instead of throw. Teching with light can be a great way to disrupt throw shimmies because if you are right about it, you can potentially hit them or even steal a turn. And even if you're late, you'll still break the grab. Yes, you'll take damage for doing a late tech, but it's much, much better than getting shimmied into a counter hit. As long as you consistently rotate your options and keep the opponent guessing, it's going to be harder for them to get their offense going on you. And with that, we have finally covered all the ins and outs of how to play Cagliostro. Hopefully you feel like you have a good understanding of the character now and you're ready to get out there and hit that rank match and hit the lab and all that good stuff. If so, feel free to leave a like on the video. I really do appreciate it. It does help out a lot. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming guides or match videos. I'm planning to do a lot more guides in the future and definitely a lot more match videos, so make sure you don't miss out on those. Either way, thanks so much for listening. Hope you guys have a good one, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.